U.S. Copyright Office has ruled out copyright registered to AI as the author, as that is not a human. Humans are the only ones that can have a copyright registration, but it hasn't specifically ruled against copyright on AI-assisted pieces, so when it's not the AI is the sole author, but a contributor. Welcome to another Let's Talk episode of Tech in the Arts, the podcast series on the Arts Management and Technology Laboratory. The goal for our Let's Talk series is to exchange ideas, bring awareness, and stay on top of the trends. My name is Maraika Lumholdt. I work on the podcast here at AMTlab, and today I am joined by our staff writer and lead researcher, Natalie Larsen, to talk about current news that has been happening in the month of September 2022. The topics we'll cover today are about the laws catching up to NFTs and how AI continues to disrupt the world of the arts. So the first story that I brought here today is all about the wild, wild world of NFTs. Have you ever bought an NFT?
I have not.
Hey, I would buy that. I would pay big crypto bucks for that. So NFTs, notoriously a disruptive technology and something that's still relatively new in the world. So laws, haven't necessarily kept up with regulating NFTs. They're a pretty new type of asset people can buy and trade. But over the summer, both Pennsylvania and Washington became the first U.S. states to tax NFTs. So similar to how sales tax might be applied to a physical, non-digital, tangible good, now NFTs in these states have taken steps towards taxing NFTs. So explicitly, they're both listing them as digital assets subject to sales and use taxes. That's the specific legal jargon around it. And I think an important note, too, is that this is new legislation, but it's kind of making current laws bend to now encompass NFTs in how they're forming these new guidelines. So there's also a teeny bit of difference between the two. Pennsylvania is adding NFTs to their Department of Revenue's taxability matrix, but that's about all they're doing at this point, whereas Washington has proposed a lot of specific guidelines. So now when buying an NFT, you have to document the time and place of each transaction, which includes the addresses of the buyers, which helps them then tabulate the vendor's tax obligation, as well as make concrete the source of the transactions. So if you know anything about NFTs, this seems like very contrary to what NFTs are all about. I think cryptocurrency which is used to purchase NFTs values privacy and anonymity as what's the word? Anonymity. As one of the biggest unique points about cryptocurrency and NFTs, right? So really interesting that this kind of regulation is eliminating that by, theoretically, if this law in Washington is successful, the anonymity might go away if specific addresses and identities have to be identified when NFTs are being purchased.
Right. Some other states that are kind of going in this direction are New York, New Jersey, and Illinois that have issued guidance previously on digital transactions involving cryptocurrency, but not necessarily anything related to NFTs. Also, Puerto Rico in the past has at least stated their intent to issue guidance on taxing NFTs, so it really begs the question how all of these new laws and regulations will kind of change that ecosystem, like you said, Maraika, based on anonymity.
Yeah, very interesting. I know there's a lot of discussion about NFTs and crypto and the good and the bad, so I wonder if there will be any backlash as more and more states potentially adopt this kind of regulation through taxation or other means of regulating. It feels like a big enough industry and enough people participating that there might be some backlash on a wide scale, but I guess that's yet to come. We'll keep watching.
Yeah, definitely an interesting story. Our second story here, which has been a pretty well-circulated story on several news outlets, and it's launched kind of a huge conversation of the use of artificial intelligence in visual art. This digital artist from Colorado, Jason Allen, entered a state fair art competition with an AI-generated work and ended up winning in the category of emerging digital artist. He was awarded a blue ribbon and $300. A lot of artists who don't use AI in their art became really angry over this. People took to Twitter talking about how this is the death of artistry and kind of talking about their fears of, robots taking over and displacing human artists. There was a digital artist, RJ Palmer, who even tweeted, "What makes this AI different is that it's explicitly trained on current working artists. This thing wants our jobs. It's actively anti-artist." That's a pretty heavy statement there.
Yeah, that is a bold claim. But I think that seems to be a lot of the backlash we hear around AI, right? It's like, what is art if there are less humans involved or no humans involved?
Right. It's like, is it a collaborator? Is it just taking our job entirely? Like, what is its role? So Jason Allen has consistently fought back against these criticisms. People have accused him of cheating as well. He says he did not cheat, he didn't break any rules. He was using AI as a creative collaborator, and he just thinks it's a wonderful thing and is inspired to see what kind of artwork comes out of it. He also emphasized that working artists who are worried about being put out of work by AI or some other technology, their anger should be directed towards the companies that are choosing to replace human artists with technology and not necessarily the technology itself. He was quoted by saying the ethics isn't in the technology, it's in the people. So it's really up to the people to decide what's ethical and how to use this technology ethically.
Yeah. I see his point, and I guess AIs are still trained by humans. Like, I know that brings a whole nother conversation about bias and everything that exists in humans that then can be replicated within AI. But yeah, I do think it brings up different use cases. Like, I remember seeing how Heinz, the condiment company, used AI-generated art in its advertising. So that, was replacing a human function that human designers would do otherwise. And I understand how that could be ethically bad, whereas if an artist is choosing to use an AI to assist them, seems like a different consideration.
Yeah. And I completely empathize with these artists who are angry, that this happened. I mean, it's already not really easy to make a living doing art, and now you have this disruptive technology coming in and making it even harder, to be honest. So what other kinds of thoughts or emotions does this kind of conjure up in you, Maraika?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to that question of what is art and how do we regard art? What's its status in our minds, which is a huge, kind of almost existential question. And I think it's a reality that I personally have not wanted to face, that AI and machines can do something that feels so inherently human, creation, right? Being creative. I don't know. I'm starting to see the side of if you're choosing to use it in a way that's assisting you and perhaps even enhancing your creative process, I can see the benefits, but it is hard for me to accept a world where art does not have any human touch.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I think to an extent, if it's completely AI generated, it's missing that human element. That's just something that comes up for me is, I mean, I don't know.
Relate or get the emotional takeaways from art that an AI generated versus a human. I don't know. Right. I don't think I really looked at enough AI art to say, oh yeah, this is giving me the same impact.
Because like you said, AI only works with what we input into it based on the kind of experiences and types of art that we input. That's what's going to get generated.
Super interesting. All these conversations just make me feel like we're living in WALL-E or some dystopian tech world.
Yeah, for sure. It's a little scary, but that's just another thing to look out for. There are a lot of conversations happening about this kind of all over Twitter and all over the internet. Yeah, I guess we'll really see where that goes.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have this conversation in 10 years and it'll be a completely different one.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? Always fun to ponder a digital future.
Yeah.
That is a good segue into my next article, which is talking about copyright for AI art. So similar to some of the points you just raised about how an AI can be treated as an artist in terms of artistic value and merit, I think copyright is a big legal application around art and how AI is changing what copyright could mean. Just another example of laws that are trying to catch up with digital change, right? So In this case, a New York-based artist just received a copyright protection for a graphic novel that they illustrated featuring AI-generated art. So the illustrations were done with the assistance of AI. So the artist is named Chris Kashanova, and their comic is called Zarya of the Dawn. And specifically, this artist used Midjourney. That's the AI they chose to use. The U.S. Copyright Office has ruled out copyright registered to AI as the author, as that is not a human. Humans are the only ones that can have a copyright registration. But it hasn't specifically ruled against copyright on AI-assisted pieces. So when it's not the AI is the sole author, but a contributor. So this definitely is still very alien to the world of copyright and just the general public in terms of how we're thinking about it. But it is gaining traction and becoming more of a conversation. Like last week, Getty Images announced that it's banning the sale of AI-generated artwork because of the potential unaddressed rights issues that come to bear with that. And they've expressed concerns over the ethical issues as well of using artists' work without consent to train AI software. So we were just saying how humans are the ones that are choosing the inputs to train an AI. So in the case of art, you know, we're feeding art that is done by a human and is the intellectual property of a human into the AI to create something new. But how do those people that help train the AI get credit when I think most of the time they're not even privy to the fact that their art is being used?
Right, exactly. It kind of reminds me of like a music artist not being aware that their song is being sampled or something.
Yeah, that's a comparison. This is like the next generation of that kind of concern.
Yeah, definitely a lot of interesting, like not only legal issues, but ethical ones too. Like you said, with art, it's just not, you can't consent to something if you don't even know it's happening.
I mean, I think in the rise of digital, we think about consent in terms of data a lot, like the data that we're sharing on social media and how that's used by social media companies or websites that are collecting any other kind of data. But I feel like we need to broaden our everyday definition of what is our personal property and could be used. Anything that we think we might have rights over scarily could be used against our will.
Yeah, revisions to the U.S. Copyright Office, or to the U.S. Copyright Code need to be made, I think, to protect these artists, at least make them aware when their images are being used to train an AI.
Similar to how we were saying how NFTs are starting to get taxed and showing up in tax law, I do think copyright probably the next big push.
So it's interesting with this story in particular, just to see what kind of legal precedent that sets for future issues, really.
Yeah, I wonder if this will be a push for artists that are using AI to seek copyright now that they can potentially get something if AI is just a collaborator, or vice versa, artists to take a stronger stance in protecting what they own legally from being used in AI. We'll see.
Definitely. So kind of going off of that same topic, this is the last story that we're going to be talking about, and it also features AI being used in the art world as a collaborator, but this time to solve a problem, really. So 2 PhD students at the University College London, along with an artist named Jesper Eriksson, have been using AI to construct long-lost paintings that were discovered via X-ray beneath existing works of art. So the AI basically takes samples of that particular artist's other work to recreate as accurately as possible an image based on this single X-ray image. So this project is called NeoMasters, and so far they've recreated works from Picasso and Van Gogh, so really big-name artists whose works have just really never been seen by the public. And they have also recently launched a new project called Text Masters, in which they use the software Dolly, where they reconstruct long-lost paintings just based on their text descriptions, which is, to me, this just sounds so crazy, right?
Yeah.
I think one of their most reconstructions with that was a Leonardo da Vinci piece, where they just took a description of a painting of his and it recreated this image.
Did you see it? Does it look similar to the...
I did not see it. Going back to the topic of NFTs, they're actually selling these images on known origin as NFTs.
Of course.
To me, another question of who is the legal owner of these images. Is it this team of 3 people that's recreating the images? Is it the original artist? Is it the AI? Is it some weird combination?
That is a really good question. And maybe in the state of Washington or Pennsylvania, they'll have to be taxed on these someday. No, that's super interesting. And like you said, show it to people that have never seen these lost works before, which I think is really interesting. But then all of a sudden you put a commercial spin on it, and it's not just for society to benefit from seeing these artworks. Now you're putting a cost on it and limiting access and adding these next layers that I think can, I don't want to say it's all bad, but can detract from the positive net community benefits I think it could have.
The cultural preservation aspect of this project is really important and really valuable. But then, like you said, putting that kind of commercial spin on it is questionable, for sure, especially when it comes to NFTs.
Yes, exactly, which raises a whole other set of potential ethical concerns.
Yeah, but I wanted to bring up the story because I thought it was interesting. I thought it was just a good example of AI being used for some good in the art world.
Yeah, I know we've seen a lot of examples of technology being used to recreate historic cultural sites in a way where museums don't have to, essentially steal artifacts from a country that's not their own to present in their country. And I think that's a way to combat some of the colonialist practices that persist in art museums around the world. This is obviously slightly different, not necessarily reconstructing something that people might have access to otherwise in a different place. But overall, that effort seems to be one that's gaining in popularity, and I wonder if AI could ever play a role in that. I'm not sure. Well, Natalie, thank you so much for talking with me today. This was super interesting and always good to have a little digestible way of keeping up with all the trends in the crazy world of art and technology.
Yeah, thanks for having me today, Maraika. Thank you for listening to Tech and the Arts. Be on the lookout for new episodes coming to you very soon. If you found this episode informative, educational, or inspirational, be sure to send this to another arts aficionado in your life. You can let us know what you thought by visiting our website, AMTlab.org. That's AMT-lab.org. Or you can email us at amtlabcmu@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Tech in the Arts, or Facebook and LinkedIn at Arts Management at Technology Lab. We'll see you for the next episode.